And let's begin things. So this panel discussion was originally scheduled for March, but COVID-19 caused us to cancel the in-person event. So now we're doing it virtually. Since then, we've worked to be as nimble and as responsive as possible, bringing you information to help you deal with the pandemic. We've also joined strategic partners in raising over $1.3 million for the One Bunkum Fund to provide support for small businesses and relief for our neighbors who've lost their jobs through no fault of their own. Last week, we launched a Smart Restart Toolkit to help businesses reopen. And if you need to see that toolkit, go to ashevillechamber.org/coronavirus. And it's on our coronavirus resource page. The toolkit has information that's broken down by industry sector to help people learn what they need to do to reopen safely. It's also got downloadables like posters you can put up about the measures that your company is taking, but it's also got things for dealing with your employees, like employee logs and things that can guarantee that you're doing things properly and can document it for liability reasons. And there's lots there, so I encourage you to go find the toolkit. As we've gone along, the Chamber has delivered a number of virtual town halls, webinars, and networking events, and many of those are recorded on that coronavirus resource page. It's an effort to continue to keep people informed and connected. And we often hear from WomanUP attendees that WomanUP is inspiring and empowering. And those are things that we can all use right now. So we decided to bring this group of local women leaders together for a virtual WomanUP. We want to thank all of the companies that supported WomanUP throughout the year. And we're joined this morning by representatives from two of those companies, Victoria Dunkel from Advent Health, our presenting sponsor, and Sarah Broberg of UNC Asheville. I'm sure we have representatives from other sponsors tuning in as participants as well, and we really appreciate your support of this programming. And I want to give a shout out to the League of Women Voters. They were supposed to have a table at this event, and we haven't figured out how to do that virtually yet. So thanks to the League of Women Voters. And as I mentioned before, Jason Muhammad would have also had a table, and we're giving away his book if you make a social media post. So we're going to choose some lucky winners to give that book away. Thank you for joining us this morning for this discussion with local leaders. And if you haven't already, please hop on the chat and type in your name and company. And remember to send it to all panelists and attendees. Now I'm going to turn it over to Sarah Broberg of UNC Asheville. Sarah.
Thank you so much, Kit. My name is Sarah Broberg, and I am the Special Assistant to the Chancellor for Communication and Marketing at UNC Asheville. On behalf of Chancellor Nancy J. Cable, Provost Gedekai Campbell, and everyone at UNC Asheville, good morning. Our shared compassion for our region, the state, and the world has given us hope during these complicated and trying times, hope for our shared humanity, and hope for a healthy and economically vibrant future. At UNC Asheville, we're also hopeful about the relevance and essential contribution of higher education in North Carolina. As Chancellor Cable is known to say, colleges and universities at our very foundation are rooted in the development of human talent and potential, contributing to a vibrant artistic, educational, corporate, and nonprofit region. As we continue the deeply detailed planning process to resume in-person instruction on campus this fall, if public health conditions allow, UNC Asheville faculty, staff, students, including the Chancellor's senior leadership team, continue to support our community partners during this challenging time. University leadership is working in partnership with MAHEC and other healthcare organizations, city and county managers and leaders, city and county school superintendents, as well as regional university and college presidents to maintain and share best practices that prioritize the health and well-being of our respective organizations and our community. UNC Asheville faculty and staff continue to provide support and consultation to community-based organizations and businesses at this time. Their support includes policy and resource information designed to support their long-term sustainability. And our students continue to support community-based organizations that provide support to the broader Asheville and regional community. This support is provided through volunteer and work, internships, service learning participation, and is key to providing and maintaining the capacity needed for service delivery during this time. So we do all of this and more, but we certainly do not do this alone. So thank you all for being engaged, proactive partners to UNC Asheville. You can learn more about our partnerships and all the goings on at the university by visiting stories.unca.edu. Our collective compassion and shared spirit of collaboration will continue to guide us all on this journey. And today, we're about to embark on a journey of our own about living into leadership. It is an honor to introduce our panelists. So I'd like to first introduce Asheville native Libby Kyles, is a champion for children and families throughout her life. She was a public school teacher for 22 years. I'm going to give you a clap for that. And all the school teachers out there, absolutely. In 2014, she co-founded YTL training programs, Youth Transformed for Life, an organization that creates bridges for children and families to overcome gaps of disparity. While teaching full-time, she served as the executive director for YTL for 5 years. She took over the helm of the YWCA of Asheville last summer. Thanks for joining us on our panel, Libby. In one word, how would you describe your leadership style?
I would be the one who couldn't find the mute button. Collaborative.
Thank you. Okay, so our next panelist is Leah Ashburn. Leah succeeded her dad as president and CEO of Highland Brewing Company in 2015. As the second generation leader of Highland, Leah has been dedicated to embracing the company's roots while also moving the company forward. Beyond Highland, Leah has served as the Asheville Chamber Board of Directors, as well as on the boards of Buncombe County TDA, Riverlink, and the Asheville Buncombe Technical College. Leah was WomanUP's 2019 Woman Executive of the Year. Leah, we're glad you could be here. How would you describe your leadership style in one word?
Thank you. I am trusting.
Thank you. Okay, we're gonna move on now. Next up, we have Christina Hall Ackley. Christina co-founded the brewery Ginger's Revenge in 2017. In the male-dominated brewing industry, Christina has created a thriving beer brand that puts the empowerment of women at the center. In addition, Christina has been a community leader by leveraging the brewery space to bring communities together. She was also named WomanUP's 2019 Rising Star. Christina, thanks for being here today. What's your leadership style?
Coach.
That's great, thank you. And rounding out our panel is Jennifer Pharr Davis. At 21, Jennifer set out to hike the Appalachian Trail and started what has become her personal mission to empower others, especially women, to have the same transformative experience. Jennifer is a record-setting hiker, author, speaker, and National Geographic Adventurer of the Year. She founded Blue Ridge Hiking Company to make the outdoors accessible and enjoyable to all. Jennifer was a recipient of the 2019 WomanUP Jennifer was the recipient of the 2019 WomanUP Woman Entrepreneur Best in Business Award. Jennifer, we're so glad you're here. Tell us about your leadership style in one word.
Resilient.
Such a good word, always, and particularly these days. Thanks to all of you for agreeing to be part of our panel. And for those of you tuning in, I would like you to answer this question as well. So in the chat, tell us in one word how you would describe your leadership style. Now I'd like to pass it on to our moderator, Victoria Dunkel from Advent Health, WomanUP's presenting sponsor.
Thank you, Sarah, and good morning, everyone. It's so good to be together. Even if it is virtually, WomanUP is such an exciting event, and it brings so much information and connection and support and sharing throughout our community of business leaders and nonprofit leaders and so much more. So we're so grateful for everyone here. I want to give a shout out to the other sponsors, but wanted to share why Advent Health believes so much in WomanUP. We actually got our start way back in 1910, thanks to the vision of a couple of women, including one of the founding members of the Adventist Church. She was here visiting some members of the church who were located here in Asheville, and they came down to this area and they realized that this would be a wonderful place to establish a point of healing as well as teaching. So this became the home of Advent Health, which way back then was Mountain Sand, and then became Fletcher Hospital, Park Ridge Health, and now today Advent Health. And it was so exciting to dig into the history of our organization and see that fingerprint of women who believe that there can be and should be support in our communities, resources in our communities, education in our communities, and connection across our entire area. And it's been so exciting to track the record. Now, if you can imagine, it has been a kind of a wild ride for the last few months, but one of the things that Advent Health has as its mission is extending the healing ministry of Christ. That never changes and it never will. At the center of that, we got to work from the earliest time, working collaboratively with other communication or communities across our area that have healthcare providers and so on, working to find the best possible options. Through that, we have learned so much about the resilience of our community. Our partners and the people who trust us for their care have shown that they are willing to do things a little differently and understand that this is our new normal for now. And we, on May 4th, were able to return to resuming all of our surgical procedures and in-office processes and procedures to allow people to have the care they need and maybe had to put off because of concerns over the spread of coronavirus. One of the things I do want to point out too is that this technology that we're enjoying today has been so vital in people maintaining their access to care. If you haven't already explored and you have concerns going back into a healthcare facility, I highly recommend you check out adventhealthnc.com to talk about telehealth options, which could have you meeting with your doctor just like we're meeting today. Above all else though, we couldn't be here without the support of our community. People shifting their focus and making masks to help people, providing gowns, and just being who we are. An amazing pocket of people who care for each other, who are here for each other, and together who will get through this together and be on the other side better because of each other. So thank you so much for allowing us to be part of your community, and we're so excited to get together today and talk about living into leadership with this amazing panel. So at that point, I do have a little bit of housekeeping. They always give me the housekeeping to do. So to our attendees, we're going to go along, and if you have a comment, go ahead, as Sarah said, and use that chat function. Be sure that you want to change it to send it to all panelists and attendees if you want everyone to see it. That's important. Otherwise, it'll just go to a certain group. If you have questions for our panelists, please use the Q&A function, and we'll have time for that afterward. So don't forget to load that up. Sarah and Aaron and myself, we're going to be watching that throughout our morning. But if our panelists are ready, I'm going to go ahead and get started. Let me hit my little stopwatch here so I can make sure I keep us on time too. Let me do that really quickly. And here we go. Our first question, so it's the obvious one, it's the elephant in the room. How has the current situation with COVID-19 impacted your business and your leadership? Who wants to go first?
I can go. Like a lot of businesses in Asheville, we have a hiking company, so our trips were canceled. We have a downtown shop, a brick and mortar, so that was closed. We offer shuttles and gear rentals. Those were unavailable, and we have a bunkhouse in Hot Springs that we had to shut down. So pretty entirely, our offerings were all impacted negatively and shut down by COVID. On the flip side, it forced us to be creative. Our online sales went up. We had success that we've never seen, and we started an online book club to keep our community engaged. And it was just a really fun way to think about the outdoors and be inspired by stories, even when we all felt very stuck and homebound. And so, you know, for a backpacking shop, I think we sold like 350 books in April, which is more than a lot of bookstores. So that was a really fun way to stay engaged. And I think the challenge for leadership during this time is just creativity.
Libby, how about you? Because you work with so many other members of, you work with such a broad spectrum of our community. How has this impacted your abilities?
So we actually shut down our fitness center before the order was put in place, because we recognized that a huge portion of our membership were people 65 or older. And so we wanted to really be cautious about their health. And then we closed down our child care center and opened up as an emergency child care center. What COVID has really done is made us rethink how we do programming and how do we keep our community connected, and what changes did we have to make within our building internally so that we can offer support to community. And so those are the kinds of things that I've been focused on. We are now delivering our program content via Zoom online, helping our diabetes and wellness program participants stay connected and our Getting Ahead participants stay connected. These programs are really vital, and when you are in an emergency like a pandemic, to lose all of your connections can be as damaging as the actual disease or virus that we're fighting against. So really trying to make sure that we were able to keep our participants connected. And then we also have done more collaborating with the county and with Manna Food Bank. And so we've increased community food markets, and we are doing a lot more food distribution.
Fantastic. I have a slight follow-up, and I'm going to actually ask of Leah or Christina. What have you learned about yourself or your company that will change how you lead post-COVID?
I'll roll into that. Wow, I learned a lot about myself. I know, so before Highland, I used to work at home. I was an independent contractor, and I worked at home for 13 years. And I actually, I focused really well. I'm relaxed at home. And so that kind of different atmosphere allowed me to really focus on what I was doing and dive into all the connections I could make to communicate really clearly to my team, to our wholesalers on a level that I never had before, and to connect with all the community folks, our guild, other brewers. It really kind of took out a lot of the stuff in a gray area of what the most important work is to do every day, and helped me focus. And I really appreciate, even though this has been a terrible thing to happen to the globe, I learned kind of where I work well, and would like to continue some of that.
Nice. Christina?
Yeah, I think for me, you know, it was kind of our business has been operating at half speed since this happened. And so we've spent a lot of time kind of regrouping and asking why, and trying to really think about like what we're doing and what we want to invest our energy in. And, you know, like Jennifer said, kind of being creative or pivoting. And so for me, with my leadership style, I think one of the things I spent a lot of time thinking about was communication. You know, how am I communicating with my team or reassuring my team? How am I communicating with my business partner, who's also my husband? How am I communicating with myself? So I think I spent a lot of time kind of like evaluating communication, and also just asking why. And just, it was kind of just like a reset in terms of how I'm investing my energy and time.
Great. So, new question here. What's been the strongest moment in your career so far, or your biggest takeaway? All right, this is a chance to brag if you want. What are you most proud of? Who wants to jump in?
I can jump in on that. I had a really clear answer to that, and then last week happened, so I feel like I have two answers now. But my original was Highland's brand refresh, and taking, you know, the company my father started. We had a brand that was around for over 20 years, and then I changed it drastically with the help of a branding company and folks at Highland on the design team. But it was really me and the marketing manager at the time that kind of took the reins and did that whole thing. And it was terrifying. It was expensive beyond every single bit of planning that we did. We still blew that out of the water, and it was worth it in 1 year. And that was so much better than I had even hoped for. So taking that huge risk and seeing the value come from it, and having our brand looked at in a new way by everyone that was really more reflective of me and our entire team today versus my father and the team in 1994 has been an awesome, not only moment, but an awesome 2 years.
Other panelists, what's your big takeaway? What is that proud moment that you consider a feather in your cap?
I think for me, it's also leaning into risk. So situations where I've done things that have really scared me, and how that's panned out. So for me, when I, over 10 years ago, I was a VP at a startup in Nashville, had a great job. I worked for 2 women owners who were awesome, but I was just feeling called to do something different. And so I quit my job and went backpacking for 3 months with my now husband and business partner. And that trip, I really feel like that decision and that trip and leaning into that risk is what ultimately led me to starting Ginger's Revenge. And so I try to notice when I'm fearful of something and kind of leaning into that, because usually it's an indicator that it's something I should do.
Interesting. Libby or Jennifer?
So the proudest moment actually of my career, and I think as a teacher, I didn't always recognize myself as a leader. But on August 30th in 2017, I received a Facebook message from a former student. And basically she said to me, it's been 10 years since I stepped into your classroom. And she said, I'm pretty sure you hugged me that day. And she said, I want to thank you for taking the time to love each and every student in your class. And I'm sure that I would not be where I am today without you. And so that is when I really think I realized what leadership meant for me and how there's leadership in every position, and it's up to us to determine how we use it.
Yeah, and I'll just add that when you think about the high points in your career, or when I think about the most memorable times on the trail, you think there are these beautiful mountaintop moments, but also often it's like the struggle, like what you get through. And I think it's the same business-wise. Like, I'm really proud of keeping the company going and viable when I had young kids and I was pregnant and I was nursing, and that was really difficult. And I think COVID has the potential to be another moment, a defining moment, that even though it's not what we want long-term, it can be what we're most proud of because it takes all of us. So I'm hopeful that I might be proud of this season as well.
Okay, so for the next question, I'm going to actually ask our audience to be part of this too. So get ready, jump in on the chat and tell us what or who has inspired you as you have taken on a leadership role. Now the audience can think about this while I hit the panelists up without much timing. Here you go, panelists, you're on the spot again. So what or who has inspired you as you have taken a leadership role?
I'll go, because I get asked a lot just with my hiking and the record setting, like what woman inspired you? And the truth is there was not one. And sometimes the lack of role model inspires you to step up. Like the outdoor industry that I work in, you don't see a lot of women, you don't see a lot of moms. And sometimes it's not even the ability to look. I love mentorship. Like I love having that network in that group. But sometimes when you identify that there's someone missing, it also inspires you to step up and fill that role.
I've definitely been inspired by our team members. So I came in from kind of running my own little business in a bubble, I would say, to this manufacturing facility that had a hospitality component and sells to wholesalers, which was a new world. So I am still today and was then blown away by the knowledge, the depth of knowledge and the passion that our brewers have for their craft, and for the scientists. They're all really scientists, whether they're brewing or whether they're in the quality department. And then dedication, some people that love systems, people that love numbers. Thank God for all of them, because those, I don't specialize in those things. So I've really been inspired by the folks who already had taken a deep dive into their areas of specialty and being able to work with each of them, learn about what they do, and then try to find ways to have us all move forward, given the talent and skills that we had. You know, what could dream the company could go with those folks is really exciting.
I've been inspired. I started out working for small family-owned businesses when I was in middle school, and looking back on it now, so many years later, I realized all of the lessons that I picked up and I didn't even realize that I was picking up. And so I got to witness this amazing, trusting leadership. I had people who asked me questions and, you know, wanted to hear my opinion. And I've really, like, reflecting back on it, seeing how much I've woven that into my own leadership style. And so I think all of the folks that I've had the opportunity to work for, they've definitely inspired me in terms of who I am now and my leadership style.
And I've been inspired by lots of people, particularly my grandmother, who used to live on 13 Velvet Street, which is no longer a street in Asheville anymore. And as I was growing up, she always really instilled in me and my cousins that it was very important that we came back to Asheville when we went off to do whatever it is we did, that we remembered our community and that we remembered the people who had poured into us, and that we would always pour into others. So my grandmother has been a huge source of inspiration. And then I have this 10-year-old daughter that I want to change the world for. And so she inspires me to break down barriers. She inspires me to push forward even when some say you can't. And so I'm very motivated to do things because I want for her, when she is an adult and she is a leader, for the road to not be so rocky.
Victoria, the participants did not disappoint. The chat is so active and they are reflecting your answers right back to you all. Family was a big one. Also, people kind of toying with this notion of, yes, they're inspired by those that have mentored them, but they're also inspired by those that they are mentoring, to see that reflected back at them, which is an interesting way of looking at it. So keep those comments coming, everyone.
What also I saw in some of those, Sarah, was that one of the things that stood out was that some of them answered the what has inspired you as well as the who, and what one person put was something along the lines of just not being willing to sit there and not do something to actually make a difference and try to change things. So very exciting. It's so great that we have such a great audience participating so much with us. Thank you. Our next question, what challenges have you encountered as you have taken a leadership role? And what have you done to address that? You know, different skills you may have learned, ways to embrace the situation, building your confidence, et cetera. So what are some of the challenges in your leadership roles?
I'll jump in. So the notes I was thinking about before we started the meeting was to call back to near the time that I started with Highland and was up here full time. So maybe, I don't know, 2013, 14, and I called a meeting of all our managers, and it was horrible. It was a terrible experience, a complete debacle. Somehow we were having, you know, it was completely chaotic, but we were still like circling around one topic that kept getting repeated. It was really bad. And I left the meeting so frustrated and feeling like it was not productive for anybody and didn't get done anything productive. So I think I learned from there and in other experiences to kind of take the temperature of things, like to learn more about who the right players are to be in the room and kind of what they think, you know, how they're going to approach the topic before I'm in there. And those little one-on-ones beforehand can diffuse so much. Like they can get through some emotional input that might be expressed as a meeting and really get down to the more like productive, how can we find a solution? How can we say yes, whatever that can be, like move it in a positive direction instead of wading through the emotional stuff.
And some of the challenges that I face really has been thinking, some of them are very internal, right? So there are lots of the challenges that I face have been internal challenges. Like, for example, as a Black woman in leadership, I always am aware of that image of the angry Black woman. So I'm always working in whatever arena that I'm in to dispel that stereotype of the angry Black woman. That's one of the things that I had to get over for myself. And then the other thing is that when you are coming from a teaching background and you're going into the CEO of the YWCA, you have to dispel other people's perception of who and what you are, because they knew Libby Kyle's the community person, the teacher, and didn't quite know how to take Libby Kyle's the CEO of the YWCA. And so really reinventing myself and reintroducing myself to community so that they had a better understanding of who I am as a leader within the YWCA beyond what I've done as a teacher and as YTL training programs.
Very interesting perspective. Other panelists, did you want to weigh in on what your biggest challenge is and how you've adjusted, approached it?
I think, like Libby, I think a lot of it has been internal. You know, I think that being a leader, being a business owner, in some ways I can amplify strengths, but it also amplifies weaknesses. And so I'm faced with weaknesses that might have affected me in my personal life, but also affect me in my professional life. And so I think one thing that I continue to learn a lot about is boundaries and setting appropriate boundaries. I've been in customer service for so long. I have this incredibly accommodating and kind of like aim to please personality, which doesn't always, you know, work in professional settings or certain situations. So I've just kind of relearned how to draw boundaries, how to protect my own energy, how to say no in a radically candid way that is also beneficial for the other person. And I don't think that this is something that I have figured out or necessarily that I'll always have figured out, but it's something that I actively learn every day, and that's definitely kind of impacted my role as a business owner and as a leader. So if other people out there struggle with the same thing, I think it's just something we all, you know, and as women too, like we all work on together and continue to improve.
Yeah, and I'll just add and echo what so many have already said. It's been a challenge in leadership, actually. So, well, Leah, Christina, and I, we all have basically family businesses. And then Libby, it sounds like your work is also, you know, a part of who you are very deeply. And when that's the case, it's all of you, it's all the time, and your expectations for yourself are extremely high. And then you take on employees and contractors, and it's been hard for me to realize that this is not their family-run business and that they're still giving me a lot, but they're not going to stay up all night the way that I am, and they're not going to work as hard as I am. And that was really hard to change my expectations for the people who were on my team, because I had such a high work ethic when it came to my baby and my family run business. And then to add to that, because it's part of it, I've learned to not take things so personally, which is hard. Like, you think you leave the drama in high school, but you know, it exists in work too. And it really hurts. Like, I wanted to be the best manager and the best boss, and things happen. And I just hurt when things at work don't go the way that you want them to. And it's taken me a long time to realize in any situation where there's criticism or fallout, there's some truth and there's a lesson, and you need to learn that, and you need to take it, and you need to grow. And then a lot of it is also circumstantial, and you have to have the accountability and support system outside of work to help you tell which is which and to leave the, you know, drama behind, to grow but not take on the negativity. So that's been one of my challenges.
And I'm looking and I'm watching what you're saying and watching the comments, and this is resonating. So what you have experienced is not unique, but it is interesting. People are saying, yeah, that's me. You know, they're really resonating with what you're sharing. I'm sure we'll get a lot of people resonating with what I'm going to ask next. If you are ready for the next question, it is, are there double standards for women in leadership roles when we're compared to men?
I'll go.
Okay.
Yes, and it's not just a double standard. It's discriminatory. As an entrepreneur, I remember having my business and then also wanting to become a mom. And all of a sudden my medical bills and my expenses for a perfectly healthy child was an additional $10,000 a year. And I kept looking around at different outfitter or guide companies that were male led. And I was like, they don't have to generate this additional income to have a child. You know, I'm very fortunate. I have a partner and a spouse, but he didn't have an insurance program that I could just jump on. And I think all the time of single moms who are entrepreneurs, because the system is not set up for us and it's very hard. And then I think it's also the double standard applies to trying to work as a mom and still be, you know, fully available and there for your children. And I travel a lot for work as a professional speaker, and I get asked all the time, isn't it hard? Don't you feel guilty? What about your kids? I have a brother who works in finance in Charlotte and travels as much or more than I do, and he never gets asked those questions. So I see a lot of double standards. I think the system is not set up well a lot of the time for women. And it's something that we all need to work together and voice our frustration and tell our chamber and tell our officials, because things need to change in order to support women in the workplace. I will also add, though, as a female entrepreneur, I love that at the end of the day, I can make my own schedule. And if something is really, really important to me or my family, I can prioritize it.
That's great. It's so important indeed. Leah, Libby, Christina, who would like to address that next?
I can address that next. First, I want to say thank you, Dee Dee Rowe, in the chat for your compliment. You're right. Being a teacher is great training for leadership. And of course, there is a double standard, and it's been very difficult. Not just a double standard in women being relegated to the role of the nurturer, but even in how we pay women in leadership versus how men in leadership are paid. But there's also a double standard, and you guys are going to just have to forgive me because it's the skin I'm in and it's the life I live. There's a double standard, not just with men and women, but there's a double standard between white women and Black women in leadership. And so every turn, every corner, there's always some little sneaky thing that I don't know how to quite say it. It kind of keeps us separated versus drawing us together. And I think it's really important that we realize that those double standards are harmful. When you are a Black woman in leadership, if you have a strong tone, you're considered angry or aggressive, or you're this thing or you're that thing. But if you are a white woman in leadership, then you are well-skilled and you are a good communicator and all of those different things. So I think it's really important that we pay attention to not just the double standard between men and women, but the double standard between white women and women of color.
Thank you, Libby.
Libby, thanks for your honesty. It's really, I think it's good for everybody to hear and just, you know, raise awareness. And you know, if we can bring that awareness into an interaction or a statement or a situation that we're in, that's really helpful. I would agree that there are double standards, and Christina and I are in a very male-dominated industry. The vast majority of the time, I have felt welcomed and respected, and have had a great experience because of a multitude of things. And I'm speaking from a position of privilege for sure. So that's a big influence. There have been times where I've been like verbally pat on the head by somebody in the industry, not another brewery owner, but you know, maybe some of the folks that we work with peripherally. And I have been seen as not the true leader of the company. I've been seen as maybe not the best leader of the company, but the folks that think that are going to retire before I do. So I will outlast them.
I like that.
You know, this was kind of a hard question for me to think about and reflect on. And, you know, I think that I've maybe kind of started ignoring some of those double standards or kind of trying to blow past them, or maybe, I don't know, maybe I've stopped caring as much, but it's just, you know, it's little things, you know, like Libby was talking about, it's the language that we use to describe women leaders, you know, the tendency for, you know, bossy, or, you know, she's the B word or whatever it is. versus the language that's used to talk about male leaders. And I think a lot about that in terms of young women and like little kids and what words we're using to encourage. I have a friend who has a very wonderfully vibrant, headstrong 2-year-old child, you know, who is just like, you know, completely blown up her world, and she's constantly chasing her around, and she's like, I have to keep reminding myself that I'm raising a future leader, you know? And so I think it's also just thinking about what can we do as a community to help young women and little girls embrace the parts of themselves that are leaders, and to kind of dispel some of those words that have traditionally, you know, angry, bossy, whatever it is, so that they can be vibrant and they can be leaders and they can help solve some of the problems that we're dealing with. So I think about that a lot, just like, you know, what can we do as a community?
And one of the other, I'm watching incredible response. Thank you to all our attendees who are sharing their comments, their experiences. And one of the other standards that they said was out there is the double standard, especially for women when it comes to age discrimination in leadership roles as well. So a lot for us to talk about. And one person also encouraged, find ways to do something about. This is a great talking point. Jennifer, you kind of alluded to this next question we were talking about, but I know each of you, Libby, you've talked about this too, that work-life balance. How have you juggled the business and the personal life? And what does self-care look like to you? Because one of the biggest things that is so important is the understanding of self-care, and it's not a crime to be good to yourself.
Yeah, I'll jump in since I alluded to that. But, you know, self-care looks different for everyone. And that's the first thing that you need to recognize. And the second thing is self-care is not all about you. It sounds so self-centered. It sounds so egocentric, but self-care is a way for you to be a better provider, a better family member, a better community member for everyone in your atmosphere, right? So, you know, Kit was on earlier showing her nails. They had been newly done. That was great. That was her self-care. My self-care is having dirt underneath my fingernails. And I think it's really important in your work and also in your home that you try to give opportunities, people the same amount of opportunities to go and do these things that fill their soul. So for example, my marriage, my husband and I, and we do work together, but we give each other 2 weeks a year away from each other, away from kids, away from work for personal adventures. And so I spend about 2 weeks a year. Usually it's a few days here, a few days there, and I go into the woods. And it reminds me why I do what I do. It fills my soul. I miss my family, which that's a really important thing, like especially after Corona. Like I just went backpacking this weekend. It felt so good to miss my children, you know, and my husband, and to be excited to see them. And so it's different for everyone. I know I become really judgy when I see people talk about it or spend a ton of time at spas, right? But just know that self-care is important, it's individual, it's unique, and you need to incorporate it into your life.
Yes, and I'll say for me, the struggle of work and life balance is really real. It's been difficult because, perceived or not, I always feel like I'm being watched and have to make sure I'm proving that I'm doing my job. And what I've learned in the last couple of years is that the person that's watching me most is my daughter. And so it's really important that I model for her self-care, because in my taking care of myself, I'm a better mother and I'm a better leader, and I'm able to do things a little bit differently. And so what I've been doing lately is I take her with me on my self-care excursions. So we do go get our nails done. We do go get a massage. We walk downtown Asheville, and then we chill on the couch with a good book.
I saw a comment from Faith Doyle and agreeing that time alone in the woods running is her self-care. And that's one of my favorite things to do, by myself in the woods for a run. But unlike Jennifer, I don't camp. And so if I go for a run and it's humid, that's as close as I get to camping. And I love it. But I recently went for 2 days by myself somewhere. I've only done that twice in my life, and it is so freeing. So that time alone, no matter what you're doing, was really recharging for me. And I think, yeah, respecting, what self-care means to everybody. It does make everyone a better, like, family member, coworker, all of those things. It's so, so important.
Self-care is something, particularly I think in the last 18 months, that I've spent a lot of time prioritizing. Opening the business. So my husband and I founded the business in 2015, got engaged, bought a house, and in 2017 we opened the brewery doors, and then 6 weeks later got married. And it was just a very not planned. It was just like, we thought the brewery was going to open sooner than it did. And we were just, I love what I do, and I love the business that we're running. And I honestly, I love working. And so sometimes it's really hard for me to pull back. But at the end of 2018, I found myself very burnt out. And it was, you know, affecting my, my role as a leader. It was affecting my business partnership. And so 2019 was all about me focusing on self-care. And on one hand, I'm so glad that self-care has now become something that we talk about in the mainstream. But on the other hand, I feel like it also creates this another to-do list, right? So it's like you're on Instagram and it's like, oh gosh, I should be rolling my face with that, or doing this. And so I almost feel like sometimes it creates more anxiety about all of the things you're not doing to take care of yourself. So one thing that I try to remember, something I read a while ago, was to shift thinking about balance as a noun, i.e. something you're trying to achieve, and instead think of balance as a verb, so something you are actively doing. And so for me, that shift, because I am very like achievement oriented, that shift has really helped me. Sometimes self-care might look like, you know, taking a walk in the woods, but sometimes it might be laying on the couch and staring at the wall, and that's okay. So I think it's also just trying to cultivate that awareness with myself and that honesty with myself about what type of self-care I need, and to not just make it another thing on my to-do list.
Yeah, and I noticed Laura Webb, who's one of the founders of WomanUP, co-founders of WomanUP as well, with Webb Investment Services, she was talking about the importance of getting with your girlfriends. But the overarching feedback that's coming in the comments is the reminder that we are absolutely flat out no good to anyone else if our cups are empty. So we need to make sure we're filling those up so we can pour out into others. And that's something that is really powerful. Let me look here on my list here as I've been trying to read quotes and comments. And so I do have one more question here. What is your top advice for women professionals and business owners? And I'm not sure which of you wants to go first, but I'd love to hear from all four of you on that. So what is your top advice for women professionals and or business owners?
I would say to be kind to yourself and grant yourself grace and mercy. There'll be more than enough people willing to criticize you and to point out your flaws. Listen with a grain of salt to what anyone says, and build a cabinet of people around you that you trust to give you honest feedback, and trust yourself because you got this.
I think that's great advice, Libby. One of the biggest lessons I've learned in my position is to trust my intuition more. It has not let me down, and I've hesitated to listen to it. And when I've hesitated, I've always regretted it. So I'm trying to, you know, when I hear that little voice in the back of my head, I'm learning that I've got a good sense about things, and I need to just let that rise to the top and let whatever message or thought come out and develop. So that's been a great experience. And then also, I think finding your tribe, personally, professionally, I think both are equally as important. I've learned so much just in the past week about the ability for breweries to reopen, and seeing how through a network, a big network of people, how you can work together in a positive way to find a solution that was not immediately apparent, and that took work from a lot of folks, and was really a satisfying outcome to something. It doesn't always work that way, but when it does, it really just kind of restores my faith in the systems that we have and the willingness of people to work together.
One of the things that my sister and I have started doing over the last year is sending each other messages and just saying, you're doing a great job. I think that telling other women that and reminding them, because I think a lot of us are like, oh, I need to do this and I need to do that. And there's constantly this, I need to be a better mother. I need to be a better daughter. I need to be a better leader. And it's just taking a step back and celebrating things that we are doing and reminding each other, you're doing a great job. And I think we all just need to tell ourselves that more, and we need to tell our fellow women that more.
Yeah, and even if you're not doing a great job, just keep doing it. I'm a big believer, obviously, in endurance, and women, there's been all these studies that we are actually hardwired. We are really good when it comes to mental, physical, and just chronic caregiving type endurance. And I don't want to be someone who thinks we should all martyr ourselves to just keep at it and keep going, because sometimes stopping is absolutely the right decision. But one of my friends said there's a difference between stopping and quitting, which I think is true. And when it comes to being in leadership or being a professional, you don't want to quit on a bad day. And you don't want to quit because other people have put you, or circumstances have put you in that position. You want it to be your decision. So, on the trail, it's because you feel horrible and you have shin splints and it's rainy and you don't want to quit on that bad day. But work-wise, it might be just coronavirus. Or it might be your kids are having a hard time at home and you don't know how to find the life balance, or you don't feel like you're doing it all well. But if you can just keep going, the weather changes, Corona changes, things change. So just hang in there. That's my advice.
Wow, some great advice for us to land on there. And Sarah, I know you've been looking at these and tracking some questions for us. This is the Q&A time. If you haven't entered your question and you have one for our panelists, please go ahead and type it into the chat now. Sarah, did you see any specific ones yet so far? I've seen a lot of thank yous.
A lot of thank yous, a lot of great advice. Everything that you all have said during this time has really resonated with our participants. So keep it coming, and I'll keep my eye on this Q&A. So please offer it up. We've got some time here to spare, which is a privilege.
Right? How do we do that? Well, while we're waiting for some of your questions to pop in, I do want to take a moment to let you know that this has been our first attempt at a wonderfully virtual get-together. You know how much fun it is when we're together in person, and we do anticipate and hope that we'll be able to meet again in person soon. Right now, the next official on the calendar event is our August event, and we are hoping and praying that will be in person. But I want to encourage you to visit the Chamber website and follow their social media on a regular basis, because depending on what you share with us today and the other comments we get and the ones that have already been coming in, we may do something like this again between now and August and even after that. It is a brave new world and a brave new day for us, but I think WomanUP has more validity and opportunity to invest in people, give you encouragement, give you a point for a little bit of self-care, because I think this is self-care too. There's something so powerful to know that we're not in this alone, and that others are experiencing, or maybe have already experienced and have insight as to how to travel through whatever our situation is right now.
Victoria, there was a question about who's the speaker in August?
Do we have our speaker finalized for August? Leanne, I'm looking for a text from you on that, because I know we've gone back and forth. That is going to be our workshop one, correct? Hey, is that you, Leanne?
It is. We do not have that finalized yet. So keep an eye out for that.
And that one usually is our interactive workshop, lots of you being involved in it. So y'all can start doing your homework and be ready for that, but it's going to be exciting. I can tell you that the committee has been going through a long list of people, and that's the hard part, where Leanne says we haven't finalized it yet. It's because we have a lot of great ideas that come from your response to our surveys, the committee members listening to you when you have a one-on-one conversation with one of us. And please let us know, because WomanUP is an event that is for you. So you really do have a steering point. Sarah, I'm seeing lots of things coming in here.
Plenty of questions. Here's one for you. As someone who is extremely empathetic, I struggle with having tough conversations. Any advice?
I can take that one. So I am also extremely empathetic and have a tendency to absorb other people's emotions. Again, this is something I'm working on. I have not figured this out. But one of the things that I have found very helpful is doing visualizations and meditations, either before or after or both, having those conversations or before those situations. So it's literally, you know, sitting cross-legged somewhere quiet. It might just be for a few minutes, breathing in and out and kind of visualizing that, like, I'm not responsible, you know, for somebody else's emotions. And so I visualize kind of like breaking the threads and kind of putting a protective bubble around myself. I also will visualize, like, I think this is like something similar, you know, if people who practice Tai Chi, so you like receive energy and you can observe it and you can honor it, but then you can also pass it on. You're not responsible for holding that energy. And so those are some of the tactics that kind of I've been working on, and it has helped me just stay a little bit more centered and a little bit more grounded. But sometimes, you know, when it's a tough day, it also just might mean crying by myself outside, and then you release it and you release that energy and you feel better and move on.
Sarah, I'm watching it scroll up really quickly beside me. What have you seen?
Plenty of questions. There are two sort of related to pursuing your career in motherhood. So someone who is thinking about having children, but is really nervous about the impact that may have on their new career. And another just talking about sort of figuring out how to balance between your career and motherhood. So any feedback or advice you might have?
I'm going to say that one of the things that I learned quickly is that I had to do a lot of my own personal meditative life that helped me to be able to balance what I do with my daughter and what I do with work. So meditation has been very helpful for me. So finding a way to really speak to my inner self and figure out what path I needed to take. I started a master's program when my daughter was 2. And the worst thing in the world was she would come by the computer and she would slam the computer down, the monitor top down, and say, "No, mommy, work." But once we figured it out, I paid attention to what she said. I paid attention to how grouchy she became if I drug her to many meetings. It's all about figuring out what's happening within your household and paying attention to your child. So if you decide to have a child early, it's all about knowing and listening. And then you have to curtail your schedule based on what feedback you're getting from your children and your spouse or whoever else happens to be in your household. So just being aware and being very present in the moments that you are there with your family, you're not multitasking, trying to do this and the other. And so for me, meditation has been a thing that's helped me kind of figure those pieces out.
There are some shout outs for an app or a website called calm.com or the Calm app. So I assume that maybe relates to meditation or something like this. So maybe want to check that out. Do you have thoughts on how local women leaders who are Black and white can form stronger alliances?
Okay, I'll jump in there. To me, I think honest conversations is how you form a strong alliance. One of the issues that can keep women of color versus white women separated is the fact that people are not willing to have courageous conversations. So it's very important that we recognize and we talk about the things that are the elephants in the room that we don't always get to speak on and dialogue about. It's important that we understand that, yes, as a Black woman, my struggle is different. It's a struggle nonetheless. Yes, as a white woman, you have a little bit more privilege than I do, but you still have struggles, and we still can find some common ground on how we can work together to build each other up. So communication, I think, is what would be very helpful for women of color and white women to be able to come together and work more collaboratively and build each other up.
Thank you. We have
Thank you so much.
Leah. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, I'm actually getting ready to wrap us up. I know we have a lot of great questions here, but I think I've got a good one for us to kind of summarize and bring this here, because it's always fun to learn something about somebody that you may not have ever expected. So I have a question here saying, what is something you want us to know about you that you haven't ever publicly been asked or had the opportunity to share? We'll hear from all 4 of our panelists as we wrap up.
All right, Victoria, could you say that one more time? I was trying to type an answer to a question.
Okay, so what is something that you have not been publicly asked or had an opportunity to publicly share about yourself? This is just kind of a, tell us a little bit of something about you. It can be about business. It can be something fun. Let's just end it with whatever, a little bit of personality.
I did a really cool exercise. I got a book from a wonderful friend in Asheville, and it was just like a 5-minute exercise in the morning, 5 minutes at night. And it was in the morning, like what 3 things, if they happened today, would make this a great day? And you just write them down. And then, if you wanted to work on something, there were a couple of other things, but that was my favorite part. And then at night, you look back and did those things happen? Did other things happen that were great? What's something that you would do differently in the future? And I found out that most of the time, at least 2 of the things that would make the day great happened. And it made me look at the day so much differently and kind of like a little simpler view, a more focused view, and a more rewarding view, because my life is constantly filled with I should, and it's exhausting. So if I boil it down and look at the things that are most important every day and realize that those things actually are happening, I was happier.
Awesome.
I'll jump in, and I want to add, this is new for me to talk about, so maybe it's like a new question, but when Libby was talking about motherhood and work, and this is something that I'm still struggling to figure out, and my kids are 3 and 7, but I want to add that to try to distance the mom guilt as much as possible is really important. And then just like you would do in a professional setting, try to outsource the things that you don't have to do. And that means defining your resources, whether it's a grandparent in town, an aunt and uncle, a cousin, people who can help within the family, or bringing a caregiver into your home, like a babysitter, a cleaner, anything that you can take off your plate so that you can focus on your kids and on your work is important. And it doesn't make you less of a mom if you're not making homemade snacks for their classroom. And it doesn't make you less of a mom or a person if your house is a mess or the yard is overgrown. But the more help you can get, the better off you're going to be. And then the weird random thing, I write memoirs and I give talks, so there's not a whole lot that's not out there already. But my New Year's resolution this year, and I thought about it when Christina was talking, because I loved, and when Leah was just talking. So a lot of us have life philosophies or mantras or meditations or faith that help us through the day. And you get that what we're bringing here, there's more to it than just showing up for work. There's a purpose in what we do and who we are. And my goal for this year was to try to see everyone as a beloved child of God, which is so much harder than it sounds. So when I think about those tough conversations at work, like someone I just don't want to talk to or something I don't want to talk about, I think, okay, this person is like a beloved child of God. And then for me, that helps me bring compassion and bring empathy and not try to be who's right and who's wrong here, but just come to it at a place where I really value the worth of that person. And so that's something, weird and different that I'm trying to work on this year.
Wonderful. That's awesome. Who else wants to tell us a little bit about something that we've maybe never been asked before or you've never shared in a panel such as this?
Okay, so I'm going to be a little lighter.
Okay.
I love to sing. I'm the karaoke queen. I wish I could do more karaoke. Singing lightens up my life. It makes me feel really good. And so I do it as often as I can. My daughter has a karaoke machine, which I think I might use a little bit more than she does. And so I try to take every day as a fresh day. Every day is a new start, and every day is a new opportunity. And I always try to find a song that goes with it. Currently, I've been stuck on India Arie's I Am Light. So I encourage you all to find the song. Yes, find the song that makes you happy every single day and just enjoy and revel in it.
I love that. We all have a soundtrack for our lives. That's awesome. All right. I think, Christina, you're up.
So kind of going off what Libby said, so I talked about how 2019 was a big focus was self-care. And my focus for 2020, which is, you know, been a little disrupted, or it just looks a little different, has been fun. So it's like, you know, how do you have fun in the midst of this like crazy pandemic? And, you know, and so one thing for me, I love turning up music really loud and dancing around the house. I'm thinking like bad 90s pop, like, you know, whatever it is. So it's like, for me, that is my moment of release, of just like dancing around and having a good time. Like Libby said, it just kind of like lightens up my soul. I just feel lighter and less anxious after I do it. And it's something you can do from your house in the middle of a pandemic. So that's one of the things I like to do.
Yeah, my daughter, who's 13, her consistent request is on the weekends, Mom, can we just get in the car, roll down the windows, and play the music really loud? So she likes to take it on the road, but there has been a few moments of wild and crazy dancing. This has been fun. This has been a great opportunity, and I want to thank each of our panelists for being willing to give us a little bit of your time today, but also give us a lot of your insight, your soul, and your courage, and your successes, and just who you are. You are examples of what WomanUP is all about, and we just are so grateful for your generosity of spirit to share with us today. Thank you all so much. Audience, keep those comments coming in and let us know. I have another question for you in the chat. Would you like us to bring you more virtual events like this for WomanUP? And if so, what would you like us to talk about, or who would you like us to try to bring in from a subject matter topic, or persons in our community who might be of interest to other members of the WomanUP family, which is this incredible group of women that I'm watching this list go by of all these wonderful names of people we know, and invite your friends to be part of WomanUP as well. This conversation is powerful. And so while we're doing that and giving you just another moment, I do want to take a moment to thank everyone who's made WomanUP possible. First and foremost, the Asheville Area Chamber. You are amazing, and we thank you for your leadership and your support. Take a look at your screen now, because you can see all of the folks who have brought it to you today. I am partial to the one on the top because that's my work family, and they are amazing. And I'm so grateful for Advent Health for believing in the power of investing in women and business leaders across our community. Laura Webb and her amazing web investment services. The UNCA, Sarah, thanks so much for being my co-anchor today. First Bank, AV Tech, First Citizens, Arby's, TD Bank, Johnson Price Sprinkle, Forest Firm. Oh, there's so many other, Western Carolina University, Mission Health. And I see some of them are covered by the wonderful panel pictures of all the panelists. So take a look at this. Visit the website and see all of the folks who make WomanUP possible. Share your insight, because this is an event that is put on by these wonderful people, but it's for you. So we want you to take ownership of it too, and let us know what you'd like to hear. And at that point, I am looking at my clock here. We are about 5 minutes to go, and I need to pop up my chat again real quick and see if we had anything else. I know they did ask for more of the soundtracks that people are listening to. So keep adding that in there. And Kit, thank you so much for being a wonderful hostess for this wonderful event. We are so appreciative of all that you and Leanne and Aaron and the wonderful team at the Chamber do for us. Panelists, once again, thank you for your time. And don't forget, one last push for this, if you loved the event, if you had fun, if you learned something today, share it on social media with the hashtag of #WomanUp. And remember, they're going to be choosing some of the posts to put you in for a drawing to receive one of the books that they mentioned at the beginning of our event. As always, it's a pleasure. Thank you so much for being with us. And I will turn it over to Kit or Leanne, who are controlling the actual meeting, to tell us when we can sign off. Are we good to, oh, we're seeing great posts here, so keep the chat going.
I just want to thank everybody also. Thank you so much for participating. Thank you, attendees, for being so great to give all your feedback. And if you like doing things virtually, let us know, because we've discovered it's possible. We can do it. So we're interested in hearing more about that. But thanks very much. And I think Erin will be the one who will end the meeting. Thanks, Victoria, for being a great facilitator.
My pleasure.